I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. At 3 in the morning, I found my daughter asleep at her desk with her phone still glowing beside her. When I saw what was on that screen, my heart stopped beating. The message read, "Did you move it yet?" And my daughter's reply, "Tomorrow. She'll never know. Mom doesn't even know what she's looking for. It's been hidden for 30 years. My name is Eleanor Mitchell. I'm 64 years old, and that night I discovered my own children were plotting to steal everything I had left in this world. But let me start from the beginning 3 weeks before that terrible night. The floorboards creaked beneath my bare feet as I made my way down the dark hallway. At 64, my bladder had become an unreliable timekeeper, waking me at the most inconvenient hours. I'd learned to navigate our old farmhouse without turning on lights 12 steps from my bedroom door to the bathroom, turn left 3 more steps. But something made me pause that night. A pale blue glow seeped from beneath Claire's door at the end of the hall. My daughter had been staying with me for 3 weeks now, ever since her divorce from Kenneth became final. She'd told me she needed time to think to figure out her next steps. At 42 years old, she said she felt like she was starting over from scratch. I understood that feeling more than she knew. The light bothered me. Claire had always been an early sleeper, even as a child. I remember tucking her in at 7:30 every night, reading her the same 3 books over and over until she knew them by heart. Now here she was awake at 3 in the morning. I stood there in my nightgown, debating. Should I check on her or respect her privacy? The mother in me won out. It always did. I knocked softly. No answer. "Claire," I whispered, turning the handle slowly. "Honey, are you still awake?" The door opened to reveal my daughter slumped over her desk, her head resting on her crossed arms. Her phone lay beside her right-hand screen, still glowing with that unnatural blue light. She'd fallen asleep while looking at something. Her reading glasses sat askew on her face, and for just a moment she looked exactly like she had at 16, studying too late for exams, pushing herself too hard to be perfect. My heart softened. I crossed the room quietly, intending to wake her gently and guide her to bed. The old Eleanor would have simply covered her with a blanket and let her sleep. But something, maybe instinct, maybe fate, made me glance at that phone screen as I reached for her shoulder. And everything changed. The text message thread was still open. The contact name at the top read simply K. I knew immediately it was Kenneth, her ex-husband. But it was the messages themselves that turned my blood to ice water. "K, did you move it yet, Claire, tomorrow? She'll never know. K. You're sure she hasn't found it? Claire. Mom doesn't even know what she's looking for. It's been hidden for 30 years. K, the property deed too. Claire, everything. Once it's transferred, we split it 60-40 like we agreed." My hand trembled as I reached for the phone. But I stopped myself. If I woke her now, if I confronted her in this moment, she would know I'd seen these messages. And something told me that same mother's instinct that had made me check on her in the first place, that I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening before I revealed what I knew. 30 years. What had been hidden for 30 years. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering so hard against my ribs, I was certain it would wake her. But Claire didn't stir. She just kept sleeping there at her desk, innocent as a child, while my entire world tilted on its axis. I closed her door with infinite care and stood in the dark hallway. My need for the bathroom was completely forgotten now. My mind raced backward through the decades searching for answers. 30 years ago, I was 34 years old. My husband James was still alive, God rest his soul. We'd been running this farm together, raising Claire and her younger brother Sebastian. James had been so busy back then, always traveling for business, always working on some deal or another. He'd said he was building our future, securing our children's inheritance. What could possibly have been hidden then that Claire and her ex-husband were conspiring about now, the property deed? They'd mentioned a property deed. I made my way back to my bedroom, but I knew sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the darkness beyond my window. The farm stretched out there 200 acres of land that had been in James's family for 4 generations. Prime South Carolina farmland worth a fortune to developers. James had died 8 years ago, leaving everything to me. Or so I'd thought. As dawn began to paint the sky in shades of gray and pink, a memory surfaced. Sharp and clear, like it had been waiting all these years to be remembered. James in his study late one night, papers spread across his mahogany desk. I'd gotten up to check on baby Sebastian, who'd had a fever. On my way back to bed, I'd seen the light under James's study door. When I'd peeked in, he'd been hunched over those papers, muttering to himself, his usually neat hair disheveled from running his hands through it. "What's wrong?" I'd asked, padding into the room in my slippers. He'd jumped like I'd fired a gun. Then he'd quickly gathered the papers into a pile and smiled at me, but the smile hadn't reached his eyes. "Just boring legal stuff, Maggie," he'd said, using his pet name for me. "Nothing for you to worry about. Go back to bed, sweetheart." I'd believed him. I'd always believed him. That was my mistake. The smell of coffee woke me from a restless half-sleep around 6:30. I hadn't realized I'd dozed off at all. My neck was stiff from sitting propped against the headboard, and my mouth tasted like copper, the taste of fear and sleeplessness. I dressed quickly in my usual jeans and flannel shirt. In the mirror, I studied my reflection. The woman who looked back at me had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners and graying hair pulled into a practical bun. I looked exactly like what I was: a grandmother, a widow, a woman people underestimated. That might work to my advantage now. Claire was in the kitchen when I came downstairs. She was pouring coffee into 2 mugs, humming softly to herself. She smiled when she saw me, that same warm smile she'd had since childhood, the one that used to light up my whole day. Now it made my stomach turn. "Morning, Mom," she said brightly, adding cream to 1 mug the way I liked it. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said, accepting the coffee she offered. The mug was warm in my hands. "Oh, I slept like a rock." She laughed, taking a sip from her own mug. "I don't even remember going to bed. I must have been more tired than I thought." The lie came so easily to her, so naturally. I wondered how many other lies she'd told me over the years. How many times had I believed her without question the way I'd believed James? I kept my face neutral, took a careful sip of coffee. "What are your plans for today?" "Actually, I need to run into town." She avoided my eyes, suddenly very interested in adding more cream to her coffee. "Some errands to take care of. Boring paperwork stuff, you know. I might be gone most of the day. Anything I can help with?" No. She waved her hand dismissively. "Just divorce paperwork, sorting out the last of the financial details. You know how it is." "Do I kept my voice light, curious. She looked at me then, and for just a second something flickered in her eyes. Guilt fear, but it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "I mean, you went through all this when Dad died. The legal stuff, the paperwork. It's exhausting, right? Boring legal stuff." The exact same phrase James had used all those years ago. After Claire left her car, disappearing down the long driveway in a cloud of dust, I stood at the kitchen window for a long moment. My coffee had gone cold in my hands. Then I moved with purpose. James's study had become a sort of shrine after his death. I'd kept everything exactly as he'd left it. His leather-bound books lined the shelves in alphabetical order. His reading glasses sat on the desk beside the lamp. Even his coffee mug, long since cleaned but returned to its spot, remained where he'd always kept it. I dusted regularly but never disturbed anything. The study had felt sacred somehow, a monument to my husband and our life together. Now I began to search. I started with the obvious places. The desk drawers yielded nothing but old tax returns, receipts, business correspondence. The filing cabinet contained property taxes all paid up to date, insurance documents, the deed to the farm in my name transferred after James's death. Everything seemed in order. But Claire's message had said something was hidden. Where would James hide something he didn't want found? The morning stretched into afternoon. I searched methodically, removing books from shelves, checking behind picture frames, examining every inch of the study. My back ached. My hands were dusty, but I found nothing. I was about to give up when I noticed something odd. The bookshelf on the east wall, the one filled with James's collection of agricultural journals and farming manuals, didn't sit quite flush against the baseboard. There was a gap, a small one, but definitely a gap. I knelt down, ignoring the protest from my 64-year-old knees, and ran my fingers along the bottom edge. The gap was real, and when I looked more carefully, I could see that the bookshelf wasn't built into the wall as I'd always assumed. It was freestanding, pulled close to the wall, but not tight against it. My pulse quickened. I began removing books from the lower shelves, stacking them carefully on the floor. Agricultural Science Monthly, 1990-1995. Modern Farming Techniques. The South Carolina Landowner's Guide. Once the bottom 3 shelves were empty, I could see it clearly. The bookshelf was on hidden casters. I wedged my fingers into the gap and pulled. The bookshelf moved surprisingly easily, rolling away from the wall on those hidden wheels. And behind it was a small door no more than 2 feet square built into the wall itself. A hidden compartment. In my own house. Behind furniture I'd dusted for decades. My hands shook as I lifted the latch. The door wasn't locked, just closed. Whatever secrets it held, James had trusted that no one would find this hiding place. He'd been wrong. Inside was a metal box, old and dusty, about the size of a large shoebox. I lifted it out carefully, surprised by its weight, and set it on James's desk. The box wasn't locked either. The lid opened easily, hinges creaking slightly. And there inside was the truth I'd been searching for. Documents. Legal documents by the look of them. I lifted the first one out with trembling fingers. It was a property deed, but not to our farm. This was for a beachfront property in Charleston, South Carolina. According to the description, it was a 3-bedroom house with ocean views located in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city. The deed was in James's name, dated 31 years ago. I didn't understand. James had never mentioned property in Charleston. We'd never even vacationed there. Why would he have the next document? Stopped my thoughts cold. It was a birth certificate. Child's name, Sophia, Catherine Bradley. Date of birth, March 15, 1994. Place of birth, Charleston, South Carolina. Mother's name, Catherine Marie Bradley. Father's name, James Robert Mitchell. My husband's name, my husband's full name. The birth date was 30 years ago, 6 months after the property deed. I sat down heavily in James's leather chair. The birth certificate trembled in my hands, the black ink blurring as tears filled my eyes. A daughter. James had another daughter, which meant James had had an affair, and Claire knew about it. The room spun around me. I forced myself to breathe, to think clearly. There were more documents in the box. I had to see them all before Claire returned. The next papers were letters. Dozens of them spanning years, all from Catherine Bradley at a Charleston address, all addressed to James at a post office box I'd never known he had. I opened one at random, dated 15 years ago. James, Sophia asks about you constantly. She wants to know why her father can't visit more often, why she can't meet her sisters. I don't know what to tell her anymore. The money you send helps, it truly does, but she needs more than that. She needs you. Please reconsider. She deserves to know her sisters. Catherine's sisters. Plural. My hands moved of their own accord, shuffling through the letters, looking for more recent ones. The last one was dated 6 months before James died. James, Sophia is getting married next month. I know you can't come to the wedding. I've accepted that after all these years. But she wanted you to know. She's still hoping you'll change your mind about meeting her, about telling your family the truth. We've kept your secret for 30 years. But Sophia is done waiting. If you won't tell them, she will. Catherine. The letter was marked with a coffee stain, as if James had been reading it while drinking his morning coffee. Right here at this desk. Had he been sitting in this very chair when his heart gave out? Had the stress of this secret, this 30-year lie, killed him? I heard a car engine in the distance. Claire was coming back. Moving quickly now, I photographed every document with my phone. My hands were steadier than I expected. Shock, perhaps, or maybe just the muscle memory of a woman who'd spent 64 years dealing with whatever life threw at her. I returned everything to the metal box, placed it back in the hidden compartment, and closed the small door. The bookshelf rolled back into place easily. I restacked all the books, making sure everything looked exactly as it had. By the time Claire's car pulled up outside, I was in the kitchen starting dinner preparations like it was any normal evening. "Hey, Mom," Claire called out, breezing through the door with shopping bags in both hands. "Sorry I was gone so long. Traffic was terrible, and then I ran into Sarah Williams at the store. You remember her from my high school. We got to talking and..." She set the bags on the counter. "Actually, I have some good news. Sebastian is driving up tomorrow." My son. I hadn't seen Sebastian in 3 months. He lived in Boston, worked in finance for some big firm whose name I could never remember. He visited rarely, always with an excuse about being too busy, too important, too in demand. "That'll be lovely," I said, keeping my hands busy chopping vegetables. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. I just thought it would be nice for all of us to have dinner together. You know, like old times." Claire started unpacking her bag's expensive designer clothes. I couldn't imagine how she afforded on her claimed divorce budget. "I bought us steaks, and that fancy wine you like." But my mind was already working, piecing together the puzzle. Why was Claire gathering the family? What was happening tomorrow that required both of my children to be here? That night I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Pieces of the puzzle shifted and connected in my mind. Claire and Kenneth were working together despite their divorce. They were planning to move something to transfer something. They'd mentioned the property deed, not the farm deed, which I'd seen in the files. That was in my name alone, transferred legally after James's death. The Charleston property deed. That had to be it. But why would Claire and Kenneth want that deed? And how did they even know about it? Unless Sophia, my husband's illegitimate daughter, had told them. Unless she'd finally made good on her threat to reveal the truth. But what truth? That she existed? That she was James's daughter? Or something more? I rolled over and stared at the red numbers on my alarm clock. 2:47 a.m. In a few hours, Sebastian would be here. Claire had orchestrated this family gathering for a reason. Whatever was coming, I needed to be ready. I got up and went to my desk, opening my laptop. The blue glow lit up my face in the darkness. I typed Sophia Bradley Charleston into the search engine and hit enter. The results made me close my eyes and take a deep breath. Sophia Bradley was an attorney, a real estate attorney specializing in inheritance law based in Charleston. And according to her firm's website, she had recently filed a claim in South Carolina probate court. The case name made my heart stop: Bradley v. Mitchell Estate Property Rights and Inheritance Claim. She was coming for the Charleston property, and she wasn't coming alone. My children were helping her. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Instead, I sat at my laptop learning everything I could about Sophia Catherine Bradley. She was 30 years old, exactly as the birth certificate indicated. She'd graduated from Duke University Law School, ranked third in her class. Now she was a partner at Bradley & Associates, her mother's firm, I realized with a jolt. Catherine Bradley had built a successful law practice, and her daughter had joined her. The firm's website showed Sophia's professional photo. I stared at it for a long time, searching for traces of James in her features. The nose, perhaps definitely James's straight aristocratic nose. The set of her jaw. The way her eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. But mostly I saw a stranger who was threatening everything I'd built, everything I thought I had. By the time dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I had a plan. Not a complete one, but a beginning. I would say nothing to Claire or Sebastian. I would watch, listen, and learn. They thought I was a simple farm widow, someone to be managed and manipulated. Let them think that. People revealed more when they believed you were harmless. Sebastian arrived at 11 o'clock, his expensive black sedan looking out of place on our dirt driveway. He'd barely climbed out of the car before Claire had her arms around him, whispering something in his ear that made him glance at me with an odd expression. "Mom," he said, crossing the yard to kiss my cheek. His cologne was expensive and overwhelming. "You look tired. Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine, sweetheart." I patted his arm. "Just excited to see you. It's been too long." "We need to talk," Claire said, her voice suddenly serious. She gestured toward the dining room. "Family meeting." My stomach tightened, but I kept my face pleasant. "Of course. Should I make coffee?" "I'll get it," Sebastian said quickly. Too quickly. They didn't want me in the kitchen. Didn't want me to have time alone. Time to think, time to prepare. They were controlling the situation, controlling me. Or so they thought. Once we were seated around the dining table, the same table where I'd served thousands of family meals over the years, Claire folded her hands and gave me what I'm sure she thought was a sincere smile. "Mom, we've been worried about you." "Worried?" I tilted my head, playing my part. "Why would you be worried?" Sebastian jumped in, his voice smooth and practiced. "You're alone out here on all this land. 200 acres is a lot for one person to manage. Even with old Jack helping with the heavy work, it's a lot, Mom." "I manage fine," I said mildly. "Old Jack comes 3 times a week for the planting and maintenance. During harvest season, I hire the Patterson boys to help. I've had the same arrangement for 8 years since your father died." "That's exactly it," Claire said, leaning forward. "You're 64 years old and you're still working like you're 30. It's not healthy, Mom. We're concerned about your well-being." "I enjoy the work," I said. "This farm is my life." "Was Dad's life," Sebastian corrected gently. "Not yours. You never wanted to be a farmer, remember? You wanted to be a teacher." The words stung more than he knew. He was right, I had wanted to be a teacher. I'd even gotten my degree. But then I'd married James, and he'd needed me on the farm, and my dreams had quietly folded themselves up and disappeared like morning mist. But that wasn't the point of this conversation, and we all knew it. "What are you suggesting?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. Claire reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was soft manicured. Mine was rough from years of work. "We've been thinking about your future," she said. "About what's best for you. And we found this wonderful retirement community about 30 miles from here. It's called Heritage Gardens." Sebastian pulled out a glossy brochure and slid it across the table. The cover showed smiling elderly people playing cards, taking exercise classes, laughing together at a barbecue. It looked like a resort hotel, all gleaming and perfect and utterly soulless. "They have activities," Sebastian said. "A community center, medical staff, on-site transportation to doctor's appointments. You'd have friends your own age, Mom. You wouldn't have to worry about maintaining this big house and all this land." "I have friends," I said quietly. "And I'm not worried." "Mom," Claire squeezed my hand, her voice taking on that soothing tone she'd used when her children were small and throwing tantrums. "We love you. We just want you to be safe and comfortable. And the truth is, maintaining this farm is expensive. The property taxes alone—" "Which I pay every year," I interrupted. "But you're living on Dad's life insurance money," Sebastian said bluntly. "That won't last forever. The farm generates some income from the crop sales and the land you rent out, but it's not enough to maintain your lifestyle long term. You need to think about your future." I pulled my hand back from Claire's grasp. "This farm is profitable. I sell crops every season. I rent out the back 40 acres to the Morrison family. I'm not destitute, Sebastian." "We know that," Claire said quickly. "We're not saying you are. But wouldn't it be nice to not have to worry? To just enjoy your retirement? Let someone else deal with the maintenance, the taxes, the difficult decisions. What happens to the farm if I move to this Heritage Gardens?" Silence fell over the table. My two children exchanged a glance, the kind of wordless communication that siblings develop over years of shared secrets. "We'd handle it," Sebastian finally said. "Claire and I would manage the property. Find renters or buyers, whatever makes the most sense. You wouldn't have to deal with any of it." "You want me to sign over my farm?" "Not sign it over," Claire said hastily. "Put it in a trust, for your protection. Sebastian and I would be the trustees, but you'd still be the beneficiary. You'd still benefit from any income it generates. It's just a way to protect your assets as you get older, to make sure everything is properly managed." "Protect my assets from whom?" Another exchange of glances. "Mom," Sebastian said, his voice taking on a harder edge. "There's something you need to know. There's a legal matter, something that Dad handled years ago that's come back up. It's complicated, but there might be a claim against the estate. If we can get everything into a trust structure before that happens—" "What kind of claim?" I asked sharply. "It's nothing for you to worry about," Claire said, that soothing tone again. "Just legal nonsense. Some woman claiming she's entitled to part of Dad's estate. It's ridiculous, obviously, but our attorney says it would be better to restructure things now before it becomes a problem." "Your attorney," I looked between them. "You've already consulted an attorney about my property." "For you, Mom," Sebastian said. "We did it for you, to protect you." I stood up from the table, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I appreciate your concern," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But I'm not ready to make any decisions. This is my home. Your father left it to me, and I'm not giving it up." "No one's asking you to give it up," Claire protested. "We're trying to protect it, and protect you." "Protect me from what?" I looked at each of them in turn. "From this woman making a claim, or from making my own decisions?" Neither of them answered. That afternoon, while Sebastian and Claire talked quietly in the living room, their voices too low for me to hear, but their postures tense and urgent, I excused myself to run errands in town. Claire immediately offered to come with me. "I need the independence," I insisted. "The doctor's going to ask about my daily activities at my next checkup. I should practice doing normal things on my own." She'd reluctantly agreed, but I saw her watching from the window as I drove away in my old truck. My first stop was the law office of Martin Reeves, who'd been our family attorney for 20 years. His office was in a converted Victorian house on Main Street, the kind of place that still had real books on the shelves and oriental rugs on the floor. Martin was surprised to see me without an appointment. He stood up from his desk, concern written across his weathered face. "Eleanor, what brings you in? Has something happened?" "I need to understand something about James's will," I said, taking the seat across from his desk. "About the estate." His expression shifted slightly, a tightening around his eyes that told me he knew more than I did. "Has something happened?" he asked carefully. "You tell me, Martin." Sebastian mentioned a claim against the estate. "What claim?" He hesitated, then gestured for me to close the office door. Once I had, he pulled a file from his desk drawer. "I received notice 2 weeks ago," he said. "A woman named Sophia Bradley has filed a petition in South Carolina probate court. She's claiming she's entitled to a portion of James's estate. Specifically, she's claiming rights to a property in Charleston." "You knew about the Charleston property?" "James consulted me about it years ago. 20-something years ago, actually. It was purchased before your marriage." He paused, seeing my expression. "Eleanor, are you all right?" "Before our marriage. That was a lie. We'd been married 3 years when James bought that property. But Martin didn't know that. He'd taken James at his word, just like I had." "Did James leave any instructions about this woman?" I asked. "About Sophia." Martin shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair. "He left a sealed letter to be opened only if someone came forward claiming to be his child. The letter was to be given to you." My heart sank. "Where is it?" "Your daughter picked it up last week. She had written permission a note with your signature saying you'd authorized her to collect any documents related to the estate. I never signed anything giving Claire permission to collect anything." Martin went pale. "Oh my God. Eleanor, I'm so sorry. She had it in writing. I should have called you to confirm, but it's fine, Martin." I kept my voice level, though inside I was screaming. Claire had forged my signature. My own daughter had committed fraud to get her hands on James's letter. "Can you tell me what you know about this claim?" Martin pulled out several more papers. "Sophia Bradley is represented by Bradley & Associates, that's her mother's law firm. They're claiming that James acknowledged paternity, privately provided financial support for 30 years, and promised Sophia the Charleston property. They have evidence. Letters Bank transfers the property deed itself." "How would they have the deed? It should be in my husband's study." "According to their filing, Sophia has a copy that James gave to her mother, a copy with a handwritten note stating his intentions." I closed my eyes. James had given Catherine the deed. "Why as insurance? As proof of his commitment to this other family he'd built in secret. What does this mean for me?" I asked quietly. "The Charleston property is currently valued at approximately $2.3 million. If Sophia's claim is upheld, that amount would come out of the estate. Since the estate has been settled and distributed to you, you would essentially owe that amount." "I don't have $2.3 million, Martin." "I know." He looked genuinely distressed. "Which is why your children are probably suggesting you restructure your assets. If the farm is in a trust, it's protected from claims against you personally. But if it's in a trust with Sebastian and Claire as trustees, you wouldn't be the trustee. Your children would be. You'd be the beneficiary, but you wouldn't control the assets." I stood abruptly. "Thank you, Martin." "Eleanor, wait. We need to discuss your options, prepare a defense. I'll be in touch." I walked out before he could see the tears of rage and betrayal burning in my eyes. My next stop was the county clerk's office, housed in the old courthouse building with its white columns and creaking wooden floors. I requested copies of all property records associated with James's name. The clerk, a young woman named Jessica, who'd gone to school with Claire, smiled sympathetically as she typed on her computer. "This might take a while, Mrs. Mitchell. Your husband's name is on quite a few properties." "What do you mean, quite a few?" She turned her computer screen toward me. James's name appeared on 7 different property records. 7. I recognized our farm, of course, but the other 6 were complete mysteries. 2 properties in our county, small parcels of land I'd never heard James mention. 1 in Charleston, which I knew about now, and 3 more in other states, Florida, Colorado, and Maine. When had James bought these? How had he paid for them? And more importantly, who knew about them? "Can you print these for me?" My voice sounded hollow to my own ears. "Sure thing. That'll be $15 for the copies." I paid with shaking hands and walked back to my truck in a daze. James hadn't just had an affair. He'd had a secret life. Properties scattered across the country. Bank accounts I'd never known about. There must have been accounts to pay for all this. Maybe other women. Other children. The man I'd loved, trusted, built a life with. I'd never really known him at all. I sat in the truck staring at the papers spread across my steering wheel. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. One of the local properties, a 10-acre parcel on the outskirts of town, had a recent notation. A lien had been placed on it 2 weeks ago. The lien holder, Kenneth Whitfield, Claire's ex-husband. I drove back to the farm with my mind racing. Kenneth had a lien on property that technically belonged to me as James's heir. How had he managed that? Unless Claire had given him access to the deed. Unless they were systematically taking control of James's secret properties before I even knew they existed. The farmhouse was quiet when I returned. Sebastian's car was gone. He'd mentioned a dinner meeting in town. Claire was in the kitchen preparing supper. The smell of roasting chicken filled the air, normally so comforting, now making my stomach turn. "Mom, you're back!" She looked up from chopping vegetables, her smile bright. "I was getting worried. You were gone for hours." "Just had some errands to run." I set my purse on the counter, carefully making sure the property records were hidden inside. "Where's Sebastian?" "He had to meet with someone. Business stuff. He'll be back tonight." She went back to chopping. "I thought I'd make your favorite roast chicken with rosemary potatoes." "That's sweet of you, honey." We moved around each other in the kitchen, a careful dance we'd perfected over the years. Her chopping vegetables while I set the table. Her stirring the gravy while I checked on the chicken. Mother and daughter working in harmony. Except everything had changed. I wasn't the trusting mother anymore, and she wasn't the daughter I thought I knew. "Claire," I said casually, pulling plates from the cabinet. "Did your father ever mention property in Charleston to you?" Her hand froze on the wooden spoon. Just for a second, but I saw it. "Charleston." She resumed stirring, but her voice was slightly too high. "No. Why? Just something I came across in his papers. Probably nothing." "Probably?" She turned back to the stove. "You know, Dad kept a lot of business stuff private. He didn't want to worry you with all the details." There it was again. That phrase. Legal stuff. Business stuff. Details I didn't need to worry about. "Did Kenneth ever meet your father?" I asked. "I mean, really talk to him beyond just family dinners." "Sure, at holidays and stuff. Why all the questions, Mom?" "Just feeling nostalgic, I suppose. Thinking about your father." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, dinner will be ready in about an hour. Why don't you rest? You look exhausted." I went to my room, but I didn't rest. Instead, I pulled out the documents I'd photographed from James's hidden box. I studied every letter, every date, looking for patterns. Catherine's letters mentioned money James sent regularly, but I'd never seen unusual withdrawals from our joint account, which meant he had another account. Possibly several. I opened my laptop and logged into our bank's website. I'd never paid much attention to the accounts before, trusting that everything was in order. Now I looked with new eyes. Our joint checking and savings were there as expected. But there was another account listed under James's name alone, an account I'd never noticed before. It showed a balance of 0, closed 3 months after James died. I clicked on the transaction history, my heart pounding. In the months before his death, James had been moving money. Large amounts. $50,000 here, $75,000 there. All transferred to accounts I couldn't access, couldn't trace. The last transfer, made 2 days before he died, was for $200,000. The receiving account belonged to Bradley and Associates. James had been paying them off, buying their silence, fulfilling a promise I didn't know about. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me look. "Unknown Mrs. Mitchell, this is Sophia Bradley. We need to talk before you sign anything. Your children aren't telling you the truth. I'm not your enemy. Please call me." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it, but not before memorizing the number. Claire called up the stairs. "Mom, dinner's ready." I went downstairs to share a meal with my daughter. We ate roast chicken and talked about nothing important. She complimented my garden. I asked about her job search. We laughed at a silly story she told about running into an old friend. It was almost like normal, almost like before. Except now I knew she was plotting to take everything from me. And I was plotting to stop her. That night I lay awake in bed, listening to the house settle around me. Old houses make sounds, creaks, and groans as the wood expands and contracts with temperature changes. Normally these sounds comforted me. Tonight every noise made me wonder if Claire was awake, if she was on her phone with Kenneth plotting their next move. Around 2 in the morning I heard footsteps in the hallway. Light ones trying to be quiet. They paused outside my door. I closed my eyes and regulated my breathing, pretending to be asleep. After a long moment, the footsteps continued down the hall. I heard Claire's door open and close. Was she checking on me, making sure I was asleep before doing something she didn't want me to see? I waited 10 minutes, then carefully got out of bed. I moved to my door and opened it just a crack. Claire's light was on that telltale blue glow seeping under her door again. This time I didn't interrupt. I simply stood there in the darkness, watching and waiting. 20 minutes later, her light went off. I heard her bed creak as she got into it. I went back to my own bed, but sleep was impossible. My mind kept turning over the facts, trying to understand the full picture. James had a secret daughter, 7 secret properties, secret bank accounts, 30 years of lies. Claire and Sebastian knew about Sophia. They'd offered to help her sue me in exchange for splitting the proceeds, but Sophia had refused, and now she wanted to talk to me. The question was why morning came with weak sunlight filtering through my curtains. I dressed and went downstairs to find both my children already awake, drinking coffee at the kitchen table. They looked up when I entered, and something passed between them, some silent communication that excluded me. "Morning, Mom," Sebastian said. "Coffee's fresh." I poured myself a cup and joined them at the table. The silence stretched out uncomfortable. Finally, Claire spoke. "Mom, have you thought about what we discussed yesterday about the trust?" "I have." "And," Sebastian leaned forward, his eyes sharp despite the casual way he held his coffee mug. "I'll do it." The relief on their faces was almost comical. Almost. "Mom, that's wonderful," Claire said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "You're doing the right thing. I know it wasn't an easy decision." "I want to read the documents first," I said. "Carefully. I won't sign anything I don't understand." "Of course," Sebastian said smoothly. "I have them in my car. They're very straightforward standard trust language, but take all the time you need to review them." He brought in a leather portfolio and extracted a stack of papers, 23 pages of dense legal text. He set them in front of me with a pen. "I'll read these tonight," I said. "Give you my answer in the morning." "Actually, Mom, there's a bit of a time constraint." Sebastian's voice was apologetic, but his eyes were hard. "The Charleston hearing is in 6 days. We need to file this trust with the court before then to protect your assets." 6 days should be plenty of time. "The attorney specifically said we needed to move quickly," Claire added. "Every day we wait is another day that woman's claim gains strength." "That woman has a name," I said quietly. "Sophia Bradley, and she's your half-sister." Dead silence. Sebastian recovered first. "How do you know about her?" "I went to see Martin Reeves yesterday. He told me about the claim, about the Charleston property." I looked between them. "You should have told me yourselves." "We were going to," Claire said quickly. "We just didn't want to upset you until we had a plan to handle it." "A plan that involves taking control of my property." "Not taking control," Sebastian said, "protecting it. There's a difference." "Is there?" I stood up, taking the trust documents with me. "I'll read these tonight, alone, and I'll give you my answer tomorrow morning." I went upstairs before they could argue my heart pounding. In my room, I locked the door, something I never did, and sat down at my desk with the documents. For the next 3 hours, I read every word, every clause, every subclause, and I found exactly what I expected to find. The trust gave Sebastian and Claire complete control. They could sell property without my consent, if deemed in the beneficiary's best interest. They could make healthcare decisions for me if I was incapacitated, a term defined so broadly that 2 doctors' signatures could declare me incompetent. They could move me to a facility, control my money, make every decision about my life, and I would have no recourse. But I also noticed something else. The document was a PDF emailed to me by Sebastian, which meant I could edit it. I'd spent the last 2 years teaching myself computer skills. After James died, I'd had to learn how to manage everything: the farm accounts, the online bill payments, the digital tax records. I'd taken classes at the library, watched YouTube tutorials. I knew how to edit a PDF. I worked until dinner time making small changes, adding clauses that required my written approval for major decisions, stipulating that I had the right to revoke the trust at any time, inserting language that required quarterly financial reports. Nothing obvious. Nothing they'd notice unless they read very carefully. When I was done, I printed the modified version. It looked identical to the original. Then I called my brother Frank in Montana. "Maggie," His voice was gruff, surprised. It had been months since we'd talked. "Everything all right?" "No, Frank. I need help. Legal help." "Tell me." So I did. I told him everything. The hidden compartment, the secret properties, the letters from Catherine Bradley, the 30-year affair, Sophia's lawsuit, Claire and Sebastian's plan to take control of my assets. When I finished, Frank was quiet for a long moment. "You need to get out of that house," he finally said. "Tonight. If your children think you're about to expose them, there's no telling what they'll do." "They wouldn't hurt me." "Money makes people do terrible things, Maggie. I've seen it 1,000 times in my courtroom. You need to leave. Now." "I can't run from my own home, Frank. This is all I have left." "Then you need leverage. Something that makes you untouchable." "Like what?" "Like a recorded confession. Can you get them to admit what they're planning?" I thought about it. "Maybe, if they think they've won." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," I said slowly, "that I'm going to sign their trust papers tomorrow. But first I'm going to make sure there's a record of what they're really doing." The next morning I came downstairs wearing my best smile and carrying the trust documents. Claire and Sebastian were already in the kitchen, both nursing coffee and wearing the exhausted expressions of people who'd stayed up late strategizing. They looked up sharply when I entered. "I've made my decision," I said, setting the papers on the counter. "I'll sign." The relief that washed over their faces was profound. Claire actually jumped up and hugged me. "Mom, that's wonderful. You're doing the right thing, I promise." "I know this wasn't easy," Sebastian added, standing to embrace me as well. "But you'll see. This will make everything so much simpler." "I do have a few questions," I said, pulling back from Sebastian's hug, "just to make sure I understand everything correctly." Sebastian's smile tightened slightly. "Of course. What do you want to know?" I had my phone in my cardigan pocket set to record. I'd tested it earlier to make sure the microphone would pick up voices clearly. "The clause about selling property," I said, pointing to the relevant section. "It says you can sell assets within the trust without my approval if it's in my best interest." "How do you determine what's in my best interest?" "We'd discuss it with you first," Claire assured me, her hand on my arm. "It's just legal language that gives us flexibility to act quickly if needed. Like if there was an emergency or if a buyer came along with a really good offer." "And the part about healthcare decisions?" "Standard stuff," Sebastian said dismissively. "If you became ill or incapacitated, we'd be able to make medical decisions on your behalf. It's just being prepared." "Define incapacitated." Sebastian shifted his weight. "Mom, why are you asking all this? Do you want to sign or not?" "I want to understand what I'm signing." "Is that unreasonable?" "No, of course not." Claire's voice had an edge now. "Incapacitated means unable to make decisions for yourself. Like if you had dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that." "I see. And who determines if I'm incapacitated?" "Medical professionals," Sebastian said. "Doctors." "Which doctors, Mom?" Sebastian set down his coffee cup hard enough to make me flinch. "What's with the interrogation? Do you trust us or not?" I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. Let them see me considering the question. "I trust that you're my children," I said quietly, "and that you want what you think is best for me." I picked up the pen and signed the document. 3 copies, each signature carefully placed, each page initialed. The whole process took 10 minutes. When it was done, Sebastian gathered the papers with barely concealed eagerness. "I'll take these to the attorney today. Get everything filed properly." "When does it take effect?" I asked. "Immediately," he said. "Once we file with the court and the county recorder, the transfer is complete. So as of today, I no longer own my home." "You're the beneficiary, Mom," Claire reminded me. "It's still yours. We're just managing it." "Right," I said softly. "Managing it." After Sebastian left with the documents, Claire seemed to relax. She made breakfast pancakes my favorite and chatted about her plans to help me redecorate the living room. "We could really make this place shine," she said, flipping pancakes with practiced ease. "Update the kitchen, maybe add a sunroom. Increase its value for when we—" She stopped abruptly. "For when you what?" I asked mildly. "For the future," she amended quickly. "For when you're ready to move to Heritage Gardens." "You mean when you sell it?" "Mom, stop being paranoid. Nobody's selling anything." I ate my pancakes and said nothing. That afternoon, while Claire was on a long phone call in her room with Kenneth, I assumed, based on her hushed, urgent tone, I retrieved my laptop and opened the encrypted email account I'd created the night before. I had 3 messages waiting. The first was from Frank Documents Received. I've shared them with a colleague who specializes in trust law. You did good work on those edits. They won't see it coming. The second was from an address I didn't recognize. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Dr. Karen Reynolds from Heritage Gardens. Your daughter scheduled an intake appointment for you next Tuesday. She mentioned concerns about your cognitive health. I thought you should know. My hands shook as I read that. They'd already scheduled my evaluation, already taken the next step toward having me declared incompetent. The third email was from Sophia Bradley's law firm. Mrs. Mitchell, my client. Sophia Bradley has asked me to reach out to you directly. She has information about your children's plans that you need to know. She's willing to meet with you at your convenience. She wants you to understand that she is not your enemy. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and dialed the number Sophia had sent me. She answered on the second ring. Mrs. Mitchell. Her voice was young professional, but underneath I heard something else. Nervousness. Hope. Yes. You said we needed to talk. Can we meet? This isn't a conversation for the phone. I can't leave the house right now. They're watching me. A pause. Are you in danger? The question startled me. Was I in danger? My own children wouldn't physically harm me. Would they? I don't know, I admitted. Mrs. Mitchell, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to want to hear it over the phone. Is there any way? Tell me now, I interrupted. Tell me why you contacted me, why you filed this lawsuit, why you're reaching out now after 30 years. I heard her take a breath. My mother died 3 months ago. Cancer. Before she died, she gave me a letter from my father from James. He wrote it the week before he died. What did it say? That he loved my mother, that he wanted to leave your marriage but couldn't, because of money. I closed my eyes. The farm. Not just the farm. His mother, your mother-in-law, left him a substantial inheritance when she died, but there was a condition in her will. The money had to stay in the Mitchell family, passed down through the legitimate bloodline. If James divorced you or acknowledged any children outside the marriage, he'd lose everything. I remembered Martha James's mother. She'd been a formidable woman, proud of the Mitchell name and legacy. She'd died 28 years ago, leaving James the money that had transformed our modest farm into the successful operation it was today. I thought it was because she trusted him, trusted us. Even if that's true, I said slowly, what does it have to do with now James is dead? The inheritance came to him, and then to me. That's the problem. My father's letter explained that he'd been systematically moving assets out of the marital estate for years, buying properties in his name alone, creating accounts you didn't know about. The Charleston property was supposed to be my inheritance, but there were others too. 7 properties, I whispered. 8, actually. There's one more in Nevada that hasn't been properly recorded yet. Together, they're worth close to $4 million. $4 million. Money James had hidden from me. Money he'd meant for his secret daughter. Your children know about all of it, Sophia continued. Claire contacted me 6 months ago, right after your father died. She said she wanted to make things right. She offered me a deal. My stomach dropped. What kind of deal? She and Sebastian would help me claim the properties. They'd provide documents, testimony, whatever I needed. In exchange, we'd split everything 50-50. They'd get $2 million, I'd get $2 million, and you'd be left with just the farm. But the farm is mortgaged, Mrs. Mitchell. Your husband took out a reverse mortgage 2 years before he died. He did it using financial documents you never saw, signatures you never made. Once you pass away or move into a care facility, the bank takes the farm. You're living in a property you don't really own anymore, and your children know it. I couldn't breathe. The room tilted around me. Mrs. Mitchell, are you still there? Why are you telling me this? I managed to ask. Because I turned down their offer. I don't want to destroy you. You're a victim here, just like my mother was, just like I am. But Claire didn't give up. She went to Kenneth, your ex-son-in-law. He's the one who's been helping them using his banking connections to place liens on properties to establish legal claims before you could discover what was happening. What do you want from me? I want to stop your children from stealing everything. I want to honor what my father actually wanted, which was for all of us to be treated fairly. And Mrs. Mitchell, her voice cracked, I want to meet you. You're my father's wife. You're the only family I have left. Footsteps in the hallway. Sebastian's voice low and urgent. She's been in there too long. Who's she talking to? I lowered my voice to barely a whisper. I have to go. Can you send me everything? The letter, the documents, all of it. Already sent to your email. Check your spam folder. Tomorrow, I said. I'll call you tomorrow. I ended the call just as someone tried my door handle. Finding it locked, they knocked. Mom? Claire's voice laced with suspicion. Are you okay? I flushed the toilet, ran the bathroom sink. I'm fine, just getting ready for bed. Can we talk for a minute? I unlocked the door. Claire stood there with Sebastian behind her, both wearing identical expressions of fake concern. We're worried, Claire said. You seem upset, confused. I'm tired, it's been a long day. Has anyone contacted you? Sebastian asked bluntly. Anyone claiming to be related to Dad? I met his eyes steadily. No. Should I expect someone to? Sophia Bradley might try to manipulate you? Claire said. She's desperate. Her mother's law firm is failing and she sees you as an easy target. She'll say anything to get money. I thought you said she was a gold digger with lawyers and a whole strategy. They exchanged glances. Both can be true, Sebastian said. The point is, don't talk to her. Don't believe anything she says. And please, Mom, sign those Heritage Gardens intake forms. Let us protect you. After they left, I opened my laptop and found Sophia's email in my spam folder, just as she'd said. The attachments took several minutes to download. James's letter to Sophia was dated 5 days before he died. My dearest Sophia, I am a coward. I've always been a coward. I chose money over love, security over honesty, and I've hurt everyone because of it. Your mother deserved better than stolen moments and secret phone calls. You deserved a father who claimed you proudly. And Eleanor deserved a faithful husband. But Eleanor also deserves the truth. And I don't have the courage to tell her while I'm alive. I'm leaving this letter to you, hoping that someday you'll find a way to help her understand. The properties I bought with money I hid from her, they're yours as I promised. But please be kind to Eleanor. She knew nothing of my deceptions. She's a good woman who loved a very flawed man. I'm sorry I'll never walk you down the aisle. I'm sorry for every missed birthday, every lie, every moment I chose comfort over courage. Your father, James. I read it 3 times, tears blurring the words. The next document was Martha's will. Sophia was right. The inheritance clause was explicit. James could keep the money only if he remained married and childless outside the marriage. If he divorced or acknowledged illegitimate children, everything would revert to Martha's sister's family. So James had hidden Sophia. Not just from me, but from everyone. Because acknowledging her would have cost him millions. The final document made me close my eyes in pain. It was a signed statement from Claire dated 4 months ago, addressed to Sophia Bradley. I hereby confirm my intention to testify that James Mitchell systematically defrauded Catherine Bradley and their daughter Sophia by hiding assets that rightfully belonged to them. In exchange for my testimony and provision of necessary documents, Sophia Bradley agrees to transfer 50% of all recovered property values to myself and my brother, Sebastian Mitchell, following successful litigation. Furthermore, I confirm that Eleanor Mitchell is showing signs of cognitive decline and will require conservatorship within the year which Sebastian and I will petition for allowing us full control of all remaining assets. This agreement is made in good faith and is legally binding. Claire had signed it, notarized it, legally bound herself to destroying me. I printed everything, made backup copies on a USB drive. And then I made a decision. I was going to fight back. The next morning I woke early and dressed carefully. I put on my church clothes, the navy dress and pearl earrings I saved for special occasions. I did my hair properly, not just pulling it back in a bun, but actually styling it. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a different woman. Not a confused old widow who needed managing. A woman with purpose. I went downstairs to find Claire making coffee. Mom, you look nice. Where are you going? I thought I'd go to church, I said. I haven't been in weeks. I need to pray about some things. Her face softened. That's a lovely idea. Want me to come with you? Actually, I'd like to go alone, if that's all right. After a moment, she nodded. Of course. Take your time. But I didn't go to church. I drove to a coffee shop in the next town over and met Sophia Bradley for the first time. She was sitting in a corner booth, and I recognized her immediately. Not from her photo, but from her eyes. James's eyes. "Mrs. Mitchell," she stood as I approached. "Thank you for coming." "Call me Eleanor," I said, sliding into the booth across from her. "We're family, apparently." For the next hour, Sophia told me everything. How her mother had loved James despite knowing he'd never leave me. How Catherine had died, still hoping James would eventually do the right thing. How Sophia had grown up knowing she was a secret, something to be hidden and ashamed of. "Did he love her?" I asked. "Your mother?" "I think so, in his way. He visited when he could. Called every week. Never missed sending money for my birthday and Christmas." She smiled sadly. "But he also never chose her over his inheritance. Over you." "Over his money," I corrected. "Not over me." Sophia pushed a folder across the table. "This is everything my attorney has prepared. You should see what you're up against." I opened it. The top document was a financial analysis. If Sophia won her original case, I would owe $3.7 million. "You'd destroy me," I said quietly. "No, your children would destroy you. Look at the next page." I turned the page. It was a revised petition dated yesterday. Sophia was now claiming only 3 properties: Charleston, Florida, and Nevada. The ones James had explicitly promised her in his letter. Total value approximately $1.8 million. The rest, Sophia said, I'm arguing should return to you. My father bought them with money he hid from you, which makes them marital property that should have been disclosed. You deserve them. Why would you do this? Because it's the right thing to do. She hesitated. And because I'd like to know you, my father's wife, the woman he chose to stay with even when it cost him everything else. My phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Where are you? You've been gone 2 hours. Are you okay?" "I have to go," I said. "They're watching me. Eleanor, my attorney, needs you to testify at the hearing about the trust Claire and Sebastian made you sign, about their plans, about everything they've hidden from you." "When is the hearing?" "Tomorrow. 10 a.m. at the county courthouse." Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours away. "I'll be there," I said. I drove home with my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Tomorrow. The hearing was tomorrow, and I just promised to testify against my own children. But when I pulled into the driveway, I saw a car I didn't recognize parked near the house. A silver Mercedes with Massachusetts plates. Something was wrong. I walked into the house to find Claire, Sebastian, and a man I'd never seen before sitting in my living room. The stranger stood when I entered, tall 50s, wearing an expensive suit that screamed professional. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Dr. Richard Sawyer. Your children asked me to stop by for an informal chat." My blood turned to ice. "A chat about what?" "About how you're managing," he said smoothly. "Your day-to-day life. Just a few simple questions. Nothing to worry about." "I'm not answering any questions without my attorney present." Dead silence. Claire and Sebastian exchanged a look I couldn't read. "Mom," Sebastian said carefully, "Dr. Sawyer is just trying to help." "I don't need help. Please, just a few questions," Dr. Sawyer said, pulling out a leather notebook. "What year is it?" "I'm not playing this game. Get out of my house." "You see," Claire said to the doctor, her voice trembling, "this is what we've been dealing with. The paranoia, the aggression. She's getting worse." "Mom, please calm down," Sebastian said. "You're only making this harder on yourself." "Confusion and resistance are common symptoms," Dr. Sawyer murmured, making notes, "especially in the early stages. I want all of you out, now." My voice was shaking, but I kept it loud and firm. "This is my house and you're not welcome here." "Actually, Mom," Sebastian said, standing up, "as of yesterday, this house belongs to the trust, which means Claire and I have authority over who comes and goes." The room tilted. I grabbed the back of the sofa to steady myself. "Give me back my phone," I said. "I'm calling my lawyer." Sebastian pulled my phone from his pocket. When had he taken it? "You're confused, Mom. You don't need a lawyer. You need help," I screamed. Not words, just a loud, piercing scream that made all 3 of them freeze. "Help someone help me." Dr. Sawyer backed toward the door, suddenly looking uncertain. "I think we should do this another time. This isn't appropriate without proper consent and procedures." "No, wait." Claire grabbed his arm. "She's having an episode. This is exactly what we've been trying to tell you about. but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt, maybe even conscience. "I'm leaving," he said firmly, pulling his arm free. "This situation requires proper evaluation protocols. I won't be part of an ambush." After he left, I faced my children. "Get out of my house." "We're not going anywhere," Sebastian said coldly. "You're not well, Mom. You need supervision." "Then I'll leave." "With what car?" He held up my truck keys. "I have your keys and your phone. You're not going anywhere until we figure out how to help you." That night, they kept me locked in my bedroom. Not with a physical lock, they weren't quite that bold, but Sebastian positioned himself at the bottom of the stairs, making sure I knew he was there. Claire brought dinner to my room on a tray like I was an invalid. "You need to rest, Mom," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Tomorrow we're taking you to see Dr. Sawyer properly, at his office where you'll be more comfortable." "I don't need a doctor." "You screamed at us today," she said quietly. "You accused us of trying to hurt you. You forgot to buy groceries last week, even though you said you were going to the store. These aren't normal behaviors, Mom." Every word was a lie, but I could see she believed her own narrative. Or maybe she just needed to believe it to justify what she was doing. After she left, I ate the soup mechanically, my mind racing. They were building a case. The confused elderly woman exhibiting paranoid delusions, unable to care for herself. By tomorrow, they'd have me evaluated by a doctor, probably one they'd already coached. He'd find signs of cognitive decline. With that diagnosis, the conservatorship petition would sail through. I had maybe 12 hours to stop them. At midnight, I heard Sebastian's heavy footsteps climbing the stairs, heading to the guest room. I waited another hour, listening to the house settle into silence. Then I moved. I'd lived in this farmhouse for 40 years. I knew which floorboards creaked and which stayed silent. I crossed my room in the darkness and opened my window as quietly as I could. The hinges, thank God, were well oiled. I looked down, 15 feet to the ground. Not an easy drop for a 64-year-old woman. But the trellis. James had built a trellis 20 years ago for my climbing roses. It was still there, covered in thorny vines clinging to the side of the house. I'd spent 40 years caring for those roses. They owed me now. I changed into dark clothes, grabbed my purse, they'd forgotten to search it, and it still held some cash and my credit cards, and climbed out the window. The trellis groaned under my weight. A rose thorn caught my hand, drawing blood. But I kept moving, finding footholds gripping the wooden slats. When I was low enough, I let go and dropped the last few feet. Pain shot through my hip when I landed, but nothing felt broken. I lay there for a moment in the flower bed, breathing hard, wondering if I'd lost my mind. Then I heard shouting from the house. Lights blazed on. I ran. Old Jack kept a work truck in the barn for hauling equipment. The keys hung on a nail inside the barn door, exactly where they'd hung for 15 years. I was in the truck and halfway down the driveway before Sebastian made it outside. In my rearview mirror, I saw him running after me in his pajamas, shouting. Too late. I drove through the darkness with shaking hands, not sure where to go. The police station appeared on my right, and I almost pulled in. But what would I tell them? That my children had taken my phone and keys. They'd say it was for my own good. That I'd signed over my property. That was legal. That they'd brought a doctor to evaluate me. No crime there. With my phone gone and the recording on it, I had no proof of anything except my own fear. Instead, I drove to the Sunrise Motel, a rundown place on the edge of town that James had always called an eyesore. I paid cash for a room and locked myself inside. Only then did I let myself shake. I'd climbed out a window, stolen a truck, run away in the middle of the night. Everything I'd just done would look like the actions of a confused, paranoid woman having a breakdown. I was helping them build their case against me. The motel room had an ancient landline phone. I dug quarters out of my purse and dialed Frank's number from memory. He answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. "Hello. Frank, it's Eleanor. I need you to come to South Carolina. Now." "What's wrong?" "It's 2 a.m. I told him everything that had happened. The doctor's visit, being locked in my room, my escape through the window. "They're going to use this against you," Frank said grimly. "Climbing out windows, stealing vehicles. They'll say it proves you're not thinking clearly." "I know. That's why I need help. The hearing is today at 10. Can you get here?" "I'm already packing. But Eleanor, you need to stay somewhere safe. They'll be looking for you." "I'm at the Sunrise Motel on Route 17, room 12. "Stay there. Don't go anywhere. I'll be there by tonight with help. Frank, thank you. That's what family does, Maggie. I lay back on the thin mattress and stared at the water-stained ceiling. I'd never felt more alone, more vulnerable, more uncertain. But I'd also never felt more determined. Morning came with pounding on my door. Mrs. Mitchell, it's Officer Dave Patterson. Your children filed a missing person report. They're worried about you. I opened the door to find Dave Patterson, who'd graduated high school with Sebastian, standing there with genuine concern on his young face. I'm not missing Dave. I'm right here. Ma'am, they said you might be confused, that you climbed out a window in the middle of the night and took a vehicle that wasn't yours. I left my own house through a window because my children were holding me against my will, and I took a farm truck from my own property. He shifted uncomfortably. Your son expressed concerns about possible memory issues. I just need to make sure you're okay. Dave, have I ever seemed confused to you in all the times you've seen me at the grocery store, at church, around town? He hesitated. No, ma'am. Then maybe you should ask yourself why my children are suddenly so certain I'm incompetent, and why they waited until after I signed over my property to decide I need help. I saw something shift in his expression. Dave might be young, but he wasn't stupid. I'm not going back with you, I continued. I'm not breaking any laws. I'm a grown woman staying in a motel room. If my children want to speak with me, they can do it in public with witnesses present. They're asking for a welfare check, ma'am. You've seen me. I'm fine, healthy and coherent. Tell them that. After Dave left, I knew I had maybe an hour before Claire and Sebastian showed up themselves. I called Sophia from the motel phone. She answered immediately. Eleanor, thank God. Claire called me this morning saying you disappeared. She wanted to know if you'd contacted me. What did you tell her? That I hadn't heard from you. A pause. Are you all right? I need your help, and your attorney. Can you meet me? Where are you? I hesitated, then decided I had no choice but to trust her. Sunrise Motel, Route 17, Room 12. Come soon. They're looking for me. Sophia arrived 40 minutes later with a woman in her 50s who introduced herself as Karen Whitmore, attorney at law. Mrs. Mitchell, Karen said, sitting in the motel room's single chair while Sophia perched on the bed. Sophia has told me about your situation. What your children are doing to you is unconscionable. If you're willing to testify at today's hearing, I believe we can stop them. Today I thought the hearing was tomorrow. We filed an emergency motion last night to move it up. After what happened to you yesterday, being held against your will, having a doctor brought to your home without consent, the judge agreed. The hearing is at 10 this morning. That's in 2 hours. What do I need to do? Tell the truth about the trust they made you sign, about their plans for conservatorship, about everything they've hidden from you. She pulled papers from her briefcase. I also need you to sign this affidavit. It's your sworn statement about what's happened. I read it carefully. Everything was there. The hidden documents, Claire's forged signature at Martin Reeves's office, the property transfers, Sebastian and Claire's deal with Sophia, their attempt to have me evaluated. I signed it. Now down. Karen said we need to keep you safe until the hearing. Your children can't know where you are. My brother Frank is coming. He'll be here tonight. He's a retired judge. Perfect. The more family on your side, the better. She stood. The hearing is at the county courthouse. Be there by 9:30. We'll meet you inside. After they left, I spent the day in that dingy motel room waiting. I dozed fitfully, jerking awake at every sound. Frank arrived at 7 in the evening, and I nearly wept when I opened the door to his familiar face. You look terrible, he said, pulling me into a hug. I feel terrible. Well, tomorrow we make them feel worse. He set down his overnight bag. I brought someone with me. He's parking the car. Who? Before Frank could answer, there was another knock. I opened the door to find a man in his 40s, professional-looking, carrying a leather bag. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Alan Foster. I'm a neuropsychologist. Your brother asked me to evaluate you. Why would I need because, Frank said gently, if we're going to fight a claim that you're incompetent, we need evidence that you're not. For the next 2 hours, Dr. Foster put me through a battery of tests. Memory exercises, problem-solving tasks, questions about current events. It was exhausting. When he finally closed his notebook, he smiled. Mrs. Mitchell, you scored in the superior range for your age group. Your memory is excellent, your reasoning skills are sharp, and you show no signs of cognitive decline whatsoever. Can you testify to that tomorrow? I can and I will. What your children are doing, it's elder abuse, financial exploitation. I see it too often and I'm happy to help stop it. That night I barely slept. Frank stayed awake too, sitting in the chair by the window watching the parking lot. What if they win? I asked into the darkness. What if the judge believes them? They won't win. We have evidence, testimony, witnesses. We have the truth. The truth didn't help James's other daughter for 30 years. Different situation. Sophia was hidden because James was a coward. You're being attacked because your children are thieves. The law tends to notice the difference. The next morning I dressed in my navy dress and pearl earrings again. Church clothes for going to war. Frank drove me to the courthouse. We were early, but Sophia and Karen were already there along with Dr. Foster and another man I didn't recognize. Eleanor, Karen said. This is Martin Reeves, your family attorney. I contacted him last night. Martin looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Mitchell, I owe you an apology. When Claire came to my office with that permission slip, you couldn't have known, they said. But Martin, I need you to testify about the forged signature. I will, and I've brought the original document. It's clearly not your handwriting. At 9:45, Claire and Sebastian arrived with their attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Gloria Henderson. Claire saw me and her face went white. Mom? Thank God you're safe. We've been so worried. Don't, I said quietly. Don't pretend anymore. Mrs. Mitchell, Gloria interjected, my clients have been frantic. You disappeared in the middle of the night, stole a vehicle. You can understand their concern. I borrowed a farm truck from my own property, and I left because I was being held prisoner. You were being kept safe, Sebastian said, his voice hard. You're not well, Mom. You need help. The bailiff called us into the courtroom before I could respond. Judge Helen Carpenter was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She reviewed the files in front of her, then looked up. This is an unusual situation, she said. We have several related matters consolidated before this court today. An estate claim by Ms. Sophia Bradley, a counterclaim regarding a trust document, and emergency motions regarding competency and conservatorship. Let's start with the estate claim. Karen stood. Your Honor, we're filing a revised petition today that significantly reduces our claim. She explained Sophia's new position, claiming only the 3 properties James had explicitly promised, returning the others to me. And why the change? Judge Carpenter asked. Because we've learned that the original larger claim was encouraged by Mrs. Mitchell's own children as part of a scheme to defraud their mother. Claire shot to her feet. That's absurd. Sit down, Judge Carpenter said sharply. You'll have your turn. Karen presented Sophia's testimony first. The signed statement Claire had made promising to help Sophia in exchange for splitting the proceeds. The emails, the timeline of contacts. Then it was my turn. I walked to the witness stand with my head high and my hands steady. I swore to tell the truth, and then I told everything. I told about finding the hidden compartment, the letters, the birth certificate, James's 30-year affair and secret properties. I told about Claire's text messages to Kenneth, though I no longer had my phone to show them. I told about the trust papers they'd pressured me to sign about the doctor they'd brought to my house, about being locked in my room and having to climb out a window because I was afraid. Afraid of your own children? Judge Carpenter asked. Afraid of what they were willing to do for money? Gloria Henderson cross-examined me aggressively. Mrs. Mitchell, isn't it true you've been experiencing memory problems? No. Your children say you left the stove on multiple times. I never left the stove on. They lied. You forgot to buy groceries even though you claimed you were going to the store. I didn't forget. I went somewhere else instead. Where? I looked at Claire and Sebastian. I went to meet Sophia Bradley, my husband's daughter, my children's half-sister. The courtroom erupted. Dr. Foster testified next, presenting his evaluation results in clinical detail. Then Martin Reeves testified about the forged permission slip showing the original document. Then Frank took the stand, speaking as both my brother and a retired judge about the suspicious timing of everything, the trust, the competency concerns, the attempt to isolate me. Finally, Sophia testified. I didn't want to hurt Eleanor, she said, her voice steady. I just wanted what my father promised me. But when Claire and Sebastian contacted me, offering to help me take everything in exchange for half the proceeds, I realized this wasn't about my father's promises. It was about greed. Why didn't you accept their offer? Judge Carpenter asked. Because Eleanor didn't deserve to be destroyed. She's innocent in all of this. She was betrayed by my father just like my mother was. I couldn't be part of hurting her more. Karen stood. Your Honor, we have one more piece of evidence. She presented documents showing the reverse mortgage on the farm, the one James had taken out without my knowledge. Claire and Sebastian knew about this mortgage, Karen explained. They knew the farm would eventually go to the bank regardless, so they wanted to seize whatever assets remained before their mother discovered the truth. The trust was just the first step. The next step was to have her declared incompetent, move her into a facility, and liquidate everything else. The courtroom was silent. Judge Carpenter took a brief recess. When she returned, her face was carved from stone. I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony, she said. This is one of the most disturbing cases of financial elder abuse I've seen in 20 years on the bench. She looked at Claire and Sebastian. You exploited your mother's trust. You forged her signature. You attempted to have her falsely declared incompetent. You conspired to steal her property. The trust document you created is hereby voided. It was signed under duress and false pretenses. Your Honor, Gloria began. I'm not finished. Ms. Bradley's revised petition is approved. She is entitled to the 3 properties specified in her father's letter. The remaining properties revert to Mrs. Mitchell as rightful heir. Additionally, I'm ordering both Claire Mitchell and Sebastian Mitchell to surrender any documents, keys, and property belonging to their mother immediately. Claire was crying. Sebastian sat stone-faced. I'm also granting a restraining order, the judge continued. Claire and Sebastian Mitchell are prohibited from contacting their mother or coming within 500 feet of her person or property for a period of 1 year. If they violate this order, they will face criminal charges. Judge Carpenter looked at me. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm truly sorry for what you've endured. Your children should be ashamed of themselves. They should be, I said quietly, but I don't think they are. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new farmhouse making coffee as morning sunlight streamed through the windows. The house felt different now, lighter somehow. Maybe it was the house. Maybe it was me. The old farm had sold quickly. I'd used the money to pay off the reverse mortgage and buy this smaller property, 50 acres with a modest house, a barn in good repair, and a creek running through the back 40. It was mine, truly mine, in a way the old place had never been. Sophia arrived at 9 as she had every Saturday for the past 2 months. She let herself in through the back door, calling out a cheerful good morning. Coffee's ready, I said, pouring 2 mugs. We sat at the kitchen table, a new table with no history of lies and manipulation attached to it. How's the Charleston house coming? I asked. Good. The renovations are almost done. I'm thinking of turning part of it into office space. She smiled. Fresh start, you know. I do know. We drank our coffee in comfortable silence. 3 months ago, I couldn't have imagined this sitting peacefully with my late husband's illegitimate daughter, planning our days, sharing our lives. But grief and betrayal had a way of reshaping what family meant. Have you heard from them? Sophia asked carefully. She never said Claire and Sebastian's names. They'd become them in our conversations. Sebastian sent another letter through his attorney, apologizing, asking for forgiveness, suggesting we talk like adults. What did you do? Sent it back unopened, same as the others. The restraining order had 6 more months to run, but even after it expired, I had no intention of seeing my children. They'd shown me who they really were. I believed them. The hardest part wasn't the anger. Anger I could handle. It was the grief mourning the children I'd thought I had while confronting the reality of the ones I'd raised. Frank called yesterday, I said, changing the subject. He wants us to come to Montana for Thanksgiving, you and me. Sophia's face lit up. Really? Really? His wife Christine is excited to meet you. Apparently she's always wanted a big family. I'd love that. She paused. Eleanor, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you hate him, my father, for what he did to you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I'm angry, disappointed, betrayed. But hate takes too much energy, and I've wasted enough years on James's lies. He made his choices. He lived with the consequences. Now I'm making mine. What about Claire and Sebastian? That's harder. They're my children. I loved them before they could speak, before they could hurt me. That kind of love doesn't just disappear. I gripped my coffee mug tighter. But I also can't have them in my life. They showed me they'd sacrifice me for money without hesitation. I have to accept that and protect myself. Do you think they'll ever understand what they did wrong? I don't know. Sebastian's letters are all justifications. They were protecting the family inheritance, trying to help me. Claire's are worse. She still insists she was doing everything for my own good, that I'm ungrateful. I shook my head. They can't see their own actions clearly. Maybe they never will. That must hurt. Every single day. We finished our coffee and spent the afternoon looking at paint samples for my bedroom. Sophia thought I should go with a soft blue. I was leaning toward sage green. We debated the merits of each, laughing over our strong opinions about something so trivial. It felt good, normal, like family should be. That evening I sat on my porch watching the sunset. The same porch where I'd spent countless evenings with James, building what I'd thought was an honest life. Everything I'd believed about my marriage had been a lie. But that didn't mean everything had been false. James had loved me in his way, a limited, selfish way, but real nonetheless. The betrayal didn't erase those memories. It just changed how I understood them. My phone rang. Frank, how's the new place? He asked. Perfect. I'll send you pictures. Good. And Eleanor, I'm proud of you. What you did standing up to Claire and Sebastian, fighting for yourself, that took real courage. I was terrified the entire time. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. You've always been stronger than you knew. After we hung up, I sat for a while longer as darkness fell. Crickets chirped in the grass. An owl called from somewhere in the trees. The sounds of life continuing regardless of human drama. I thought about Claire and Sebastian, probably sitting in their separate homes, nursing their grievances, convinced they were the victims. I thought about James, wherever the dead go, carrying the weight of his choices. I thought about Catherine Bradley, who'd loved a man who could never fully love her back, and who'd raised Sophia to be stronger than the situation that created her. And I thought about myself. Eleanor Mitchell, 64 years old, starting over. The old Eleanor would have been terrified, would have clung to the familiar even when it hurt, would have forgiven Claire and Sebastian because that's what mothers were supposed to do. But the woman sitting on this porch wasn't that person anymore. I'd climbed out a window to save myself. I'd faced my children in court and told the truth. I'd made an ally out of a woman who should have been my enemy. I'd learned that blood didn't always mean family, and family didn't always mean blood. Most importantly, I'd learned that starting over at 64 wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning, forwarded from my old address. Cream-colored cardstock with elegant script. Claire Mitchell and Dr. Richard Sawyer request the honor of your presence at their wedding. I stared at it for a long moment. Claire was marrying the doctor she'd brought to evaluate me. The same doctor who'd had enough conscience to walk away when he realized what was happening. Apparently he'd come back. I threw the invitation in the trash. That afternoon, Sophia and I drove to Heritage Gardens, the retirement community Claire and Sebastian had wanted to put me in. But we weren't there for a tour. We were there to volunteer. After everything that had happened, I'd become involved with an elder advocacy group. We visited retirement homes, helped seniors understand their legal rights, taught them to recognize the signs of financial abuse. I told my story. Not all of it that was too personal, but enough. Enough to help other women recognize when their children were manipulating them. Enough to give them the courage to fight back. Mrs. Mitchell, one of the residents, a woman named Dorothy, waved from the garden. I signed those papers you told me about, the ones giving me back control of my accounts. Good for you, Dorothy. My son wasn't happy, but like you said, it's my money. I earned it. You absolutely did. On the drive home, Sophia was quiet. What are you thinking? I asked. That you turned something terrible into something good. You could have just moved on, focused on your own life. Instead, you're helping other people. I'm helping myself, too. Every time I tell my story, it hurts a little less. And every time I help someone else stand up for themselves, I remember why I fought so hard for my own freedom. We stopped for dinner at a little Italian place in town. Over pasta and wine, we talked about everything and nothing. Her new boyfriend, my plans to plant a vegetable garden, Frank's upcoming visit, the ordinary details of ordinary lives. It was exactly what I needed. When I got home, there was a message on my answering machine. Sebastian's voice, carefully neutral. Mom, it's me. I know you don't want to talk, and I respect that. I wanted you to know that I've been seeing a therapist. working through some things. She's helping me understand how the money, the inheritance, how it poisoned our relationship. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to understand what I did wrong. I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. I listened to it 3 times, searching for sincerity. Maybe it was there. Maybe Sebastian really was trying to change. But it didn't matter. I'd spent too many years believing people when they told me what I wanted to hear. James promising he was just working late. Claire insisting she only wanted to help. Sebastian claiming he was protecting me. I was done believing words. Actions were all that mattered now. I deleted the message. That night I stood in front of my bedroom mirror. The woman looking back at me had more gray hair than before, more lines around her eyes. But those eyes were clearer now, sharper. She'd been tested and hadn't broken. At 64, I'd learned the most important lesson of my life. You're never too old to start over. Never too old to fight for yourself. Never too old to recognize your own worth. I climbed into bed in my house on my land, and fell asleep within minutes. For the first time in 40 years, I didn't dream of James. I dreamed of tomorrow.